Welcome to the Elevate Your Ride podcast, where rider performance is taken to the next level through conversation and education. Our episodes range from rider health to horse training to the stories behind successful amateurs and more. I'm your host, Ellie, personal trainer for equestrians. Thanks for tuning in. So yesterday I watched you coaching one of the ladies in the barn, and you were talking about volume up and volume down. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, that's one of my, I call my Jamesisms, and, of trying to make things relatable to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
When we're calling on our horses, we get amped up.
Mm-hmm.
And some riders ride more amped up and some riders don't. So it kind of started in my mind that I would tell a rider, like, I could see them getting nervous or anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say to them, like, your volume's really high.
Mm-hmm.
You're screaming at your horse currently.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to talk to your horse. You've got to turn your volume down.
Today on the podcast, I'm bringing on James Saubolle of Elite Show Horses out of Pilot Point, Texas. James has trained and coached many horses, many riders to success at the world level. And today I brought him on to talk about his coaching style. I had taken a lesson from him. I watched him coach other riders at my barn. He's come out and done a couple of clinics. So I've gotten to know his coaching style, and I think that he's a really good coach. You break things down. You're welcome. Yeah, you're really good at breaking things down, at explaining things in a way that amateurs can relate to it and understand it. And I've noticed a couple times that if you are explaining something to somebody and they're not getting it, you'll break it down in another way. You'll try to either visualize it, so set out pieces of equipment so that way they can figure it out, or you'll explain it in different language.
Run it on foot sometimes.
Yeah, they'll break it into a way that they can understand. And I think that that makes you a really good coach. And I've been impressed by it. So tell me a little bit more about your background, why you got started in the industry, why you got into the all-around horses, all the things.
I started with speed horses. Kind of my aunt got me into that. Wasn't really my jam. So kind of transitioned. I decided I wanted to jump. So my mom found a hunter trainer for me. I did hunters for about 6 years. It was fairly competitive. That obviously got extremely expensive, a little out budgeted for my family, or a very normal family.
Yeah.
And I found my way at actually an aunt, or cousin, I should say, got me into, like, you should get a quarter horse. I think you really like that. So I found my way to the quarter horses. I had a hunt seat horse I did. Obviously, that was kind of more natural for me. In that, I got to where I fell in love with the showmanship and the horsemanship. So we were able to get a second horse, and then ended up selling the first horse. And that kind of what led me into the all around. And my horse trainer at the time was like, you're going to need a little better horse. Like I won the Arizona Sun Circuit as a kid in the showmanship in the hunter saddle. And so now when I was aging up, I needed a little better horse. That's insert where I've got Tonight's Night Honey, who happened to be double registered. And that's kind of what led me into the paints.
Why did you want to become a horse trainer in the first place?
I knew I didn't want to do anything else. I was never good at anything else. School was hard for me. I got good grades, so I could show. That was kind of always my parents' rule of thumb.
Yeah.
So I'm a terrible test taker. School was very hard for me.
Yeah.
So I kind of always knew I wanted to do something that didn't really require an education.
Yeah.
But at the time, I kind of planned to still go back to college. When I was showing the paints, Erica Lang at Erica Great House, we shown together, been competitors together for years. We were each other's rivals and best friends. And when she decided she wanted to run for number one, she had primarily shown quarter horse trainers, and none of them were interested in doing that. Well, I had been showing paints quite a bit more than her at that time. So she had said, well, why don't you just take a year off and haul me for number one? And so here we were. I was 19 years old. She was just older than me, 20. And somehow people thought it was a good idea to turn us loose and let us do that. And that first year, we won number one together. And that year hauling is kind of how I acquired some customers. People approached me. I started, actually, that began a lot of my lessons. Is obviously I'm 19 years old. People didn't really trust me to be a horse trainer at this time, which probably was fair. And I started just doing like showmanship, horsemanship, equitation lessons for programs. Well, then as people saw that, and I was calling Erica, and I had a couple other horses, one of my own and another customer, they just kind of acquired. And so that was my turning point of, oh, I really could do this. And that's kind of how it started. I planned to go about it, but I planned to finish school, to have that to fall back on, planned to kind of live life a little bit more. But I got into that level of pink later. And so I hadn't got to do all the things like as a non-pro that I wanted. So my plan was I'd coach Erica, go back to school, and come back as a non-pro. And then I just never left. And I kept setting
Yeah.
little timelines. Like, I'm going to give myself time 22. And if at 22 I'm not feeling successful, I'm going to go back to school. Then it was 25. Then it was in 5. I'm obviously going to stay doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So when did you decide, or when did you know that you were going to be a good coach? So I feel like horse trainers either go into horse training for training horses, or they go into it for training people.
I feel like pretty early on, like I was lucky to ride with a lot of really, really awesome people and learn a lot along the way. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I went to programs where we learned to build 2-year-olds or learn to train Paturi horses. That was never what I did. And I think I've always stayed in my lane. So I think at that, my career was started on a lot of senior horses. And I was lucky enough to get, competitive amateurs on my senior horses that really helped me continue to learn how to show.
Yeah.
And so from that, obviously, I wasn't teaching Shine Isaac or anything. He taught me more than I could ever explain.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably where the coaching started. Is like, I honestly was getting coached by him in a way. I'm like being taught how to be a horse trainer by right and wrong. And then along that way, I would just do the same thing I wanted my coaches to do to me, is look at me and as I'm performing or preparing and tell me everything that's wrong, which sounds dark, but I don't want to hear, you're good.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Your foot looks terrible. Get him in the bridle. Why aren't you making him look better? And so that's what I always wanted to hear, because I need to hear I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm going to do well. Yeah. So I think that was the premise of it, is I liked looking at a picture and not in a negative way, but I want to find everything wrong with it and stare until I can't find anything wrong with it. Because I feel like that's how you present perfection, or as close to it. So
I was going to say, sorry, are you a perfectionist?
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm very type A.
Yeah.
Everything I do, down to how my barn's kept, how my clothes are. I mean, every once in a while I'm type A to a T. Sometimes to a fault.
Yes. I feel like most type A people.
Sometimes to a fault. And as I age, I'm getting better about it. But yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people lack the confidence to tell their trainer, hey, pick this apart. I want to get better at this. Where did that confidence for you come from?
Probably from lack of confidence, honestly. Like that's most of where it comes from. Getting into the industry the way I did was very different. I was very fortunate to land AQHA. So when you have someone like that you're going around with, you're judged. Other trainers are annoyed that you're just walking in with this really nice horse with a really good rider. And I think that weight on me, it was very humbling, because I always felt like I had something to prove. And not in the sense of I have to prove that I can create the horse. I have to prove, because I know that's not my strength. I'm not built, like I said, I'm not building 2-year-olds. So I had to find a way to have confidence in my coaching and putting that polished piece together. And that's where I had to focus, because I was never educated in doing the building from the ground up. And I have such respect for those trainers that do. And I just always wanted to have my own niche separate from what the typical mold was.
Yeah. Okay. So what are your strengths as a horse trainer? What are you the best at? Why do your customers come to you?
I mean, I think most of my customers choose me for my coaching. I think they've all seen me out, or I've helped them in some way along the way. And so I think that's what brought them to me. Having started a career with older horses, primarily care is beyond important with any horse.
Yeah.
But with an aged horse, it's completely different.
Yeah.
It's a complete balancing act at all times. And I started with that. Shane Zipper was older when I got him. And I had a group of those at the time. So I had to learn my veterinary care, daily care.
Yeah.
That was so important for my longevity for my business. My business is different than others. Mine's based on someone wanting to keep that horse and show.
Yeah.
My side of it is not necessarily buying that yearling and bringing it along the way. And then, like mine was especially early on built on taking an aged horse and continuing its career and keeping it happy, keeping it healthy, keeping it down, keeping it wanting to show for their exhibitor. So I think a lot of what I feel like when people tell me is my coaching ability and my care for the horse, and I do put the horse first. And it's important to me that the horse is put first in all decisions. Yeah.
What's your best event to either train the horse or coach the rider?
I Probably like as far as my open classes, I'm
Yeah.
probably most known for the trail.
Yeah.
Trail Western riding. I've kind of equally been successful in both. I've had some success in the pleasure, but by way of relying on my very, very talented peers. So primarily like they're training them. And if they have too many, then I would get to show them.
Yeah.
I would show them the limited division. Like it's very important for me that like that's what they're good at.
Yeah.
So I've had some success in the pleasure, but again, really I was a catch rider. Like it is what it is. And I'm very comfortable with that. My customers were comfortable with that because take those horses and build them on, right? To coat, showmanship, horsemanship, and eck. Those are my bread and butter. I personally always loved equitation. I have a hunter background. I won equitation as a youth. It's very big to me. It's a big focus in my program. But horsemanship, they all kind of go together for me. Yep. I love the showmanship. I love coaching the showmanship.
Me too. Yeah.
So the three of those kind of all go together for me.
What is it about the eck that draws you to it? What do you like to see out of an eck horse? What do you like to see out of an eck rider riding at the top level?
I think it just comes from my hair background. I want to see a strong leg. I want to see a forward moving horse. I love that all of our patterns recently have become more hunter related.
Yeah.
You know, and there's also a fine line with that because we are still taking stock horses and you need to find that middle ground of what looks huntery, but what still looks like a stock horse. And I think that's a fun balance. But I like the precision of an equitation rider. I think when you get a strong upper level rider, and they're feeling their hands and legs and how their fingers work, and getting that horse to, you know, explode in hand gallop and settle in the sit trot, like those different pieces, I think that's what draws me to the equitation.
What sets apart a good rider from a great eck rider?
I think just time. Like you can tell when people are in their saddles. You can tell when they put the time in. You can tell when there's a passion for the equitation, and you can tell the riders that I'm going to do the equitation for the all around. There's a big difference.
There's a difference. Yeah.
To me, the first thing I look at with an equitation rider, obviously, when you look at them, you see their leg, you see, but when they're traveling, the way their hands work the reins, that will set apart a rider for me really quickly. Seeing an effective rider feel their horse's mouth, drive them to the bridle, and I can forego a flaw here or there just to watch that. It's like a horsemanship rider, there's so much feel in their hand. You know, I always relate my horsemanship to a reiner.
Okay.
Those reiners, they get those horses so supple, so soft. And you see that reiner take a hold of their horse in a pattern, they bridle down and fold to their riders. I think that's the equivalent to equitation fingers and a strong horsemanship rider that can keep such a good communication.
Have you ridden the reining?
Little bit. So I can't remember, but a while back I was bouncing around barns. One of my barns sold. I had to find somewhere to go. Yeah. And I landed at Green Valley, which was then, I forget what it changed to, but now it's Thor Sport. It's a huge rank facility, Cardinal in the middle. And I called them up blind one day. I needed a barn to go to. And I went and worked out of there for about 2 years. And it was all reiners and me. And so that's
intimidating for an all-around
program. For sure was. And they were all, the reining community is so wonderful. They were all so kind to me. They're all still friends of mine today. That was a really interesting experience. My trails struggled there because obviously the reiners don't want trail poles in their arena.
No, they don't.
So I'm doing my trail outside in grass, and that was a tough space.
I bet.
But I took that time and really honed in on like my horsemanship skills. I rode with the reiners, you know. I would have them help me teach me like how do I get that cool turnaround.
Yes.
All mine were good and fine, but I look at everything, I want to be great.
Yeah.
And so I spent time with them doing that, and then I would help them with their lead changes. And so that was a really fun time of my life that I really liked.
What specifically did you take away from that experience? Like, was there a specific piece of advice?
I think the way that we as all-around people look at a turnaround and the way a reiner looks at turnaround are two very different things. And you can't, in my opinion, you can't take a reining turnaround and be super great in the horsemanship unless you make it a little horsemanshipy. Okay. You know, like they are not as adamant about a hind leg staying still or right in the general zone. They are very about the front end action. So it was fun to take all that knowledge that they taught me about learning how to get front end action and make that cool look and teach them to drop down, but then still take our side of it and isolate a hind end way more specifically than they do because we're always not going to turn at that speed. It's unrealistic for them to hold a foot dead perfect at that speed that they get those horses to do, where we are a little slower.
And be correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So something that I heard you mention yesterday in a horsemanship lesson, it was you were coaching one of our riders in our barn for her fast extension at the lope for the horsemanship.
Yes.
And you really wanted her to set her hand, but give the horse a little bit more rein and have the horse hunt down for that bridle instead of keeping him so close contact and kind of, I don't want to say curled up in his neck because he wasn't curled up in his neck, but you wanted him to reach. Yes. Why?
Obviously, horsemanship equitation headset is always a controversial topic. Everyone has their opinions, their thoughts on what they like. I personally don't like my horse in the horsemanship so up in the bridle. Like I say, I go back to the reiners. Reiners are down, they're very low, they're deep.
Yeah.
We obviously want contact.
Yes.
So I like to find a way to get my horse to really drop from the wither and set in my hand in the hole. And I also feel like when you want that horse to run, you're not running in a pinched up position when you're being asked to run. Like you're kind of getting loose and going. Yeah. And so I like what I was trying to explain to her is like, if you want him to get that long stride, he's a tighter strided horse as well. Yep. If you want that long, you have to get him room to run. I didn't want her necessarily to go to a drape rein. Right. But I wanted her to let her horse hunt that bridle a little bit more and lean to it. Yep. So she could open up his stride. And I thought she was able to accomplish it. It looked really, really nice. It was a big change and a easy fix.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah. He opened his stride. He looked more willing. It looked more free flowing.
Absolutely.
So when I took a lesson with you, you really wanted me to, same thing, like play with my reins, get my horse to drop her neck down and lift up through her back and hunt her nose down a little bit more. Do you think that you learned that more from the reining or like spending that time in the reining barn, or is that something you could have done before as well?
No, I definitely think it's something that's evolved, especially in the last 5 years, the way horsemanship has evolved. I mean, it's its own beast now.
Yeah.
And so I think I was able to learn about that in the reining. And then because I had such an appreciation and a passion from spending my time with them, I still to this day keep up with all the reining community. I watch all the reiners. I watch all the podcasts about them. I watch the futurity. Yeah. Still there because I think that reining is horsemanship. Yeah. And so I'll take those pieces and then just obviously being at those major events, being at the Paint World. I go to Chorus World Show nearly every year and watch, or I watch online. I go to the NSVA World every year. So watching those upper level 3 amateur horsemanship riders and see that that's where our style's going. So then it's forced me to evolve in that. Anytime I go to a major event and I see something a little different, I kind of like note that. Is that going to become a trend? Is that what we like? Is that where we're going? Or is it just that team they just really liked? And I think I always think like that. Every major event I see, when I see a winner that maybe I didn't see coming, I want to go back and watch that video or watch that trainer coach or watch that rider ride again just to see, like, I think it helps me try to stay a little bit ahead of what's to come.
Yeah. Would you say that you're a visual learner? So you like to watch and see what other people are doing?
I love watching makeup pen. I love looking at other people's lessons. I love watching really talented non-pros go out there and see, like, I think that's a part of leads into my coaching. I watch them work through some things and how they get there. And then I try to think like my riders that maybe don't spend as much time as those ones on their horses. What can I do to get that feel from my rider so that I can eventually ask them to call on those horses like they do and find a way to relate to them for those ones that have real jobs and can't ride 5 days a week. You know, that's most of my riders.
What's something that you've learned from watching a non-pro ride that you then were like,
I think that would be more like style of execution. Like when I watched, a Clay McDowell, watch him go,
incredible. Yeah.
Wonderful family. Yeah. Father's an amazing horse trainer. He's an amazing rider. I like watching him be in the pen and know, I mean, he's so talented to be a horse trainer. So I'm watching him, taking it in and watching where he's maneuvering, what he's doing, thinking that's what my girls are going to do. Yeah. But they're doing it where he can ride, has ridden his whole life with one of the best horse trainers, his father. Yeah. And so I'm like, how can I fast pace my people to have that feel or find that timing? And so that's from watching non, I think that's what goes through my mind is how can I make that happen for my people, to where they can have some form of that success, and not even in the win per se, but that success in like an execution.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you brought up Clay because I would say that he definitely trends more riding closer to that Raider type horsemanship style.
Very much pushes everything to the brink so well.
Yes, but he does it very well. It's never rough.
There's a group of them, obviously. He's a stand up for him because he pushes things to the brink, I have a big, personally, when I'm watching a lot of horsemanship, I kind of use it. I don't want to hold my breath at
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm holding my breath. I'm not like, for me, if I was judging that, if I'm holding my breath, I'm having trouble spoiling that because I obviously was seeing something could go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then that the horse trainer in me, I'm always worried for anybody to have a problem. I want everything to be successful for everyone. Clay's a very interesting one because you watch him go, he can push something. I never hold my breath. I always just know he's got it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a cool thing. And there's a group of people, of those amateurs like that, that can really do that. And I'm always impressed by that. And my goal is always like, how can I get my people to feel that confident?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree that I learn a lot by watching as well. I'm always watching the World Show Live feed, especially like the level 3 horsemanship, the showmanship, the trail, the Western riding. I actually feel like I gain more from watching how the non-pros ride than the pros ride. Maybe that's because I'm a non-pro, right? And pros and non-pros do ride differently. It is different. Is there anything that you've learned from watching other trainers ride that you've taken into your own program?
80% of what I've learned. So, I mean, I think that there's so many talented people. I live in a really nice area where there's tons of talent around. Our weekend shows for like a world show.
Yeah.
So I for sure am always watching my peers, always taking in, seeing where they're getting with their horses. I say 80% of what I've learned is from watching other professionals and what they accomplish, good and bad, right and wrong, all.
Yeah, we learn just as much what not to do as what to do.
Absolutely.
What's something specific that you can think of?
I think I like watching their transition of taking maybe a not so broke horse to finished horse, and like how they accomplish it and the pace it's at. Because I think we all wonder, are we working hard enough? Are we working fast enough? Am I taking too long? Am I too slow? Am I asking too much? Am I asking too little? So I think that's probably my biggest takeaway when I watch another peer of mine get a horse I either knew of or saw, and then maybe don't see it for a month, and I think I can learn like, wow, I think I'm going really, really slow. And then I look at that horse they're bringing along and it's at a similar pace, like, okay, maybe I'm not. So I'd say that's probably more quick off the tongue. What I think I can say I really learned from my peers is probably just like reassurance. Like we're all doing our best and we're all trying our hardest. And so I think that's probably in like telling myself. So I guess what I've learned is like to take a breath and trust the process. I think I'm watching my peers do that gives me assurance as well.
Are you always hearing, roll your shoulders back, push your heels down, add more leg, but you don't feel like you can? These cues will feel like a constant fight if your mind and body has not developed the proper connection, coordination, mobility, stability, and strength required. At Lopin Down the Rail Fitness, I create customized workout plans for riders so you can become a stronger athlete for your horse. If you're ready to ride more effectively, visit my website, lopindowntherailfitness.com, linked in the show notes of this episode, and start training with purpose to elevate your ride. Can you think of a scenario where you trusted in the process, even if it didn't look like it was going to turn out the way that you wanted it to?
I can give more scenarios. And like, I really thought it was never going to come together. I would say my biggest success story for myself is Pop Sensation. It's a paint horse I've had. He's won the amateur horsemanship a couple times, the amateur reputation. I won the trail on him. My non-pros won the trail. I mean, been very successful with them, but he was a fine one. Carly Parks had him. Was very successful in the trail on him. She was wonderful. And I remember when I called her and said, I want that horse too. I'd ridden his brother, and she also had, which I owned later as well. And said, I love that horse. He's exactly what I want. And she very black and white said to me, I don't know if you're going to like him. And I didn't know what that meant. She said, he's not very trained. And I was like, what do you mean? I believe she won the Green Trail at the NSDA World. And she said, oh, no, he knows how to do all that. And when Carly says that, Carly's the queen tra. And so I was like, okay, what do you mean? She's like, I just think you should come ride him. And she was pregnant with Corbin at the time. So she said, I could use some help. Why don't you come spend a week, come ride with me? Wade Vidsy on the horses. I got my own horses. My belly's hitting the horn. Can you come spend some time? So I went up there. We rode together. And the horse name's Chester. And I rode Chester. And I quickly got what she meant. Like, super talented, super nice. Not a lot of natural try. head to the trail poles, phenomenally trained. Carly makes an amazing horse. And she would say, well, if he'll get him loped off, I don't know if he'll break to the trot. Like, yeah, okay. So I ended up buying him for Elizabeth Collins, and she's been a coach of mine for years. We've had several horses together, and she's ridden me since she was 13. She's had babies. She's 26, 27. And that process was rough. So she was, I believe, a senior at college. So we had planned, she had her older show gelding, Zipple's Paycheck, and he was older, and we planned to be retiring soon.
Yeah.
And we got him home, and we're like, okay, we're going to take our time and build him. She has college, blah, blah. It was one of the hardest horses I've ever trained. Any of my peers I would like lean on in the process would tell me to give up.
Yeah.
That he wasn't worth it. It was never going to come together. Even if you get him to do that, he's not going to be nice enough. And I just always saw something in him. Now, I definitely question the process a lot. There's a lot of days and a lot of phone calls with my customer, but I don't know if this is going to work out. We might need to start looking forward. I don't know. And luckily, Lloyd Collins was just like, well, we're just going to keep going. If it takes a year, if it takes 2 years, if it takes 4 years, he's what we have. We're going to do it.
Make it work.
Yep. And there was a very interesting process because most people at the situation, those owners would push back and you picked it out. Why isn't it working? Yeah. They're horses. I didn't want to pick a problem. You think I wanted a problem for me, right?
No.
And she knew that.
Yeah. No.
So she was very trusting, and it took us a long time. And he's turned out to be one of the best paint horses we've had. He's one of my most favorite horses. He's extremely reliable. But that horse stands out to me of everyone told me to give up. And I, for some reason, had an immense amount of confidence with him. And it took me a long time, but it finally worked out.
What did you learn from that experience?
So much. So I have had several horses since that I probably was able to fast pace through because of him. Like, I will reference him like, had I not had Chester, I don't know if I would have figured this out. Or had I not had Chester, I don't know if I could have sorted out that fast. Oh, he's just like Chester. I should try it like this. And Chester was a little bit more unorthodox. He didn't train normal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think he, like Shine My Zipper did way back then, I think Chester taught me a lot to better my career.
So you would say that your career and your business is better off from having that really challenging horse?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Because again, I'm not a 2-year-old trainer.
Yeah.
So a lot of the horses that we will go buy are all around horses that didn't make it, or a pleasure horse that wasn't quite good enough.
Yeah.
And so I'm a lot of times kind of buying the problem horse and trying to see what I can make it into.
Yeah.
You know, not necessarily saying I'm buying the 2- and 3-year-old.
Yeah.
But buy the 6- or 7-year-old that everybody flunked that I saw something in. That's more of what I've done through my career. The horse that people kind of gave up on or were quirky or different.
Yeah.
All the way back to Shine My Zipper, he was extremely quirky. Everyone who had him was very successful, but every single trainer that had him will tell you a horror story of some sort that he did, or some event he was naughty or he spooked or he kicked out, or and I always pride myself that yes, a million people paved the way, but at the very end, when horses tend to be the most difficult, I was able to have him go on and show prick-eared, happy. 98% of the time he won. And so I think that started that in me. And I think Chester also, like, in a different way, added to my tools of what I can learn to make the next horse better.
So to take it a little bit different direction, what's something that you find yourself telling your non-pros all the time?
With my customers, I try to have very, very direct communication on whatever we're doing. I try my very best. Not saying I was perfect at it, but it's always my goal to communicate highs, lows, positive, negative. And I think from that, my customers do have quite a bit of trust in me because they know if I'm unsure about something, or if I'm happy with the way that horse is working or what our plan might be, I'm type A, I can't really hold it back.
Yeah.
So they're very used to like blunt conversations, and they know like when I'm doing that, my heart's in the right place and I want to succeed for them. And so I will have those hard conversations because I don't want to let them down or fail them. So if we're struggling, I want them to know, like, I know I'm struggling and I'm going to try my best and I want you along that ride. And if it's not okay with you, that's fine. But I'm not going to hide it from you or try to, disguise it in a way. I'm saying that I'm really struggling, or this horse is being naughty, or it's being really tough, or, and I think that I've had good results from that because then they know they're part of it. And then we're always working through the process, and generally we get to the other side. So I think just and I encourage them to always communicate to me. If they're not happy about something or they had a bad day and it's not sitting well, tell me. If it hurt my feeling.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't hurt my feelings for a minute, but we're going to learn from it and grow from it. And we're going to create a process that may not feel that way again, that you can let me know sooner. I don't ever like anybody walking away from a lesson, a horse show, a transaction feeling not their best. And if we aren't doing our best, what can we do next time to make it better? So I would say just communication in general.
Do you notice any similarities between your most successful clients? Any similar character trait?
I think like in any horse person, just dedication. There's people go through ways of life of horses where, especially as kids, it's their everything. Sometimes you're into college and that shift, that transitions out. Sometimes it comes back. Some people, it never changes.
Yeah.
So I think it's just dedication, like what they want to accomplish. I always say, I can't want this more than you. And that's a line I use often. Like if I feel a kid getting defeated or an amateur or whatever, I will say like, I can't want this more than you.
Yeah.
So if you're not wanting this like this, we need to go back to the drawing board and figure out how we want that, because I can't. I am a trainer that wants to carry the load for them a lot. I want to create perfection and put them on and let them have a success. And I do want to try my best to make sure when I head into that horse show, I have that horse so prepped that we shouldn't have any problem, nothing should go wrong. Obviously, the horses were never in full control.
That happened.
That's what goes through my mind leaving for an event. It's like, how can I make sure it goes so perfect?
As a coach, I totally relate to that. And I tell people, especially new clients all the time, I'm like, if you're coming to me and you're expecting me to make you do your workouts, to make you focus on your nutrition, to make you get off the couch, like it's not going to work out long term. Like I can help you. I can give you the tools that you need, but I can't be there at 6 a.m. to get you up out of bed for your workout.
Responsible for something.
You have to be responsible. You have to be accountable. You have to come to me with all of that prep work done. And if that prep work is not done before the client,
I can only do so much.
I can only do so much. Right. And I think that is a hard line that a lot of either amateurs for you or people looking to get fitter who come to me is I can't do it for them. I can't put the hard work in for them.
No.
They have to want it.
And I think like you said, you had that conversation and that's like me. When someone approaches me, they know I'm pretty serious. Like we're not just horse show to horse show. We're all have a plan.
Yeah.
There's an end goal. It's not, we're not just going to the horse show. When we're attending that horse show, we have a plan. We have a purpose. We're using that horse show for X, Y, or Z, or we go into like in these classes, we're going to do this. These classes, we're going to do that. Because we're always trying to find a way to peak at a world show. And so I think that that's a lot of where my mind goes with them. And early on when they approached me about my program, we talk about that. Like, what are your goals? Let's make sure we're all on the same page of what we think is realistic. And then this is going to be what I need from you to achieve that. And if we don't do it like this, the process could just look different. And so I don't want you to look in the barn and see these girls that have been with me for a very long time, put a lot of years in, know all the things that I can come up with. You're not going to catch up to them if you don't put the time in. And so that's a big conversation I have in the beginning with new customers and make sure. And I have had some that say, I just don't think we're ready for that.
Yeah.
I completely understand.
Yeah.
And usually I take that time and say, what are your goals? Let me help find you someone that is ready to achieve those goals. And if it changes one day, give me a call.
Yeah.
The door's open.
Yeah. I have had similar conversations with clients who come to me and I can just tell from that first conversation, I'm like, I can just feel that they're not where they need to be. Like they haven't done that prep work that I mentioned earlier. They haven't developed the dedication, the commitment, like all those things kind of need to be done before people come to me. And it's the most frustrating part of my job is I can only want something for somebody so much.
And mine is like I have so many young professional amateurs that are all working careers. They're all, they're working girls. They all finished college. Most of them are, either finished grad school, in grad school. So they're balancing a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I have I think probably from my lack of education, I'm so impressed with them. And so that's where a lot of my push comes to try to make sure those horses are at their best, because I know the effort it takes for them to get out there to practice, and they do a good job balancing real life, working, some in school, some having children now, and still fitting in the barn. So I try my very best to always make sure like everything is as good as possible. So their hour or two that they can spend at the barn, we can get so much accomplished.
You're humble enough to get inspired by your amateurs,
Oh,
by
yeah.
our clients.
Oh, yeah.
Which
My girls impress me every day. All of them. They all work so hard, and they're lucky to have great families that support them in this. And I don't take that for granted because, I mean, that's what keeps us going, for sure.
Mm-hmm. What does a typical day at home look like for you? What are the routines and the habits that you have on a daily basis that set you up, you and your horses and your riders, for success?
I'm like just from my type A personality, I'm very pattern oriented. I kind of get up at the same time every day. I go through the same routine every day. I think we talk about it as horse trainers often, like really what makes a nice horse is consistency. And I probably take that to the type A and the most of the most. So I'm very consistent with my horses. I will often joke, like, I may not be the most talented, but I have the strongest work ethic.
Yeah.
And I will be out there every day. And I try my very hardest. I'm really, really big on getting horses out every single day. So I'm just very pattern oriented to everything. I like to ride in a certain pattern. I like to get the horses out in a certain pattern. I can saddle in a certain way. So I just think my type A-ness / consistency probably just kind of my most pattern to my day.
How do you avoid burnout?
You don't. I mean, I think the horse world has ebb and flow. And I think the universe has a very interesting way of handling that. And, there's always a progression and timeline with certain customers. And so I've often learned that whenever I'm feeling a burnout, there might be a large shift, whether it's an amateur's done showing, if someone has to sell a horse, like it's often like if you trust the process, it seems like the ebb and flow naturally happen. And anytime I'm feeling at the brink, I'll have a shift, and it kind of feels like and then everything kind of picks back up and changes. I think the horse world's ebb and flow. It's always evolving and changing. Because I'm so pattern oriented, I like to make sure I'm done at an early hour every day. Like I try to be done between 2 and 3 every day. I'm lucky, most of my amateurs will come on the weekends, or they'll have a day off work and come right in the morning. And I like to get up early. I like to get my day started early. I like, I want to have, 3 or 4 horses ridden before 10 a.m.
Yeah.
I like to get up and get going.
Yeah.
And so I think I achieve less burnout because I do get done every day and I go live normal life.
Yeah.
I go to town, I go shopping, I go meet friends for dinner that are some in ministry, and I have a big circle of friends that have nothing to do with horses, that have no clue what I'm talking about, which is also, I think, what keeps me from having burnout. I have a set of friends that, one works in retail, one works in property management. So they have literally never been around a horse in their life. And so I think that balance, and I take time for myself. I tend to work 7 days a week so that I can take a random 3-day weekend and have zero guilt. So I think that probably for me is what keeps like my burnout under control.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you take time to go on vacation to spend time away from the barn.
I joke that I work to vacation. I don't have I don't have kids. I've been lucky enough I don't have a lot of debt. So I joke I work to travel. And that's really truly what keeps me happy, and I enjoy making those memories with other friends, with different friend groups we travel with. And so that's my kind of get out of my real world into the real world.
Do you ever have to say to yourself, where you notice that you're grinding too much, you're getting too burnt out, do you ever have to stop yourself and say, okay, I need to take a step back, I need to go home for the day, I need to go to the beach for the weekend?
Very rarely. Like my type A personality, keep that pretty in check, because I have like internal guidelines that like I won't allow myself to feel that way, because I know that can happen. So that's why I start so early every day. I have a consistent, like when I'm one of those people, if I'm walking to the walker with a horse, I walk out, I put one on, I come in, if I'm going to saddle one, I will take one to the walker to bring one in. I'm never doing one task. So I'm extremely type A and efficient.
Multitasking.
And so that's what, like, that's important to me, because I love my work. I love what I do, and it's very passionate to me, but I also love my time.
Yeah.
And I know that without my time, I won't be a good coach. I won't be a good trainer. I won't be a good partner in life for anybody. Like, I have to think of those things, because I have had times where I guess it would be my form of burnt out, where everything just makes me irritable. Yeah. And now, as an adult, I've learned, like, okay, like, you have to take more time for yourself. So I'd say like the last 10 years, I've made myself do it every day. That's the way I pattern it. Yes, if I have some kids that come into town or we have to work in the evening, I go back. Because I love the lesson, I love to do it, but I try to get my days done pretty early.
Are you loving our content and are wondering how you can support your hosts? Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify for access to all our episodes ad-free. For $4.99 a month, you can help us bring you the quality content you need to elevate your ride. If you're interested in sponsoring an episode for your business, our packages start at $25 an episode and offer you a wide range of exposure to equestrians. Click the Sponsor Us link in the show notes to learn more. What do you find yourself teaching your amateurs a lot of? What do you find yourself saying a lot at home?
Like one-liners or like what do we actually work on?
Both.
I would say we generally work horsemanship based a lot. Like we always start with some form of horsemanship. Horsemanship definitely relates to trail, relates to equitation, relates to Western riding.
So tell me why. Is it to get the horse connected to the rider? Why?
It's your connection. Okay. And going back to we talked about the reiners, those reiners get such a feel to their horse, whether it's fast, whether it's slow, whether it's a long range, short range. And I think I take that in relation. So I think for horsemanship, it's the same thing. If you can ride a horse on a short range, you can ride the horse on a long range. You can ask for fast, you can ask for slow, you can ask for turn, square corner. That relates to trail, Western riding, equitation. So I'd say my group primarily start and ride with horsemanship every day. That's something we take a part of. And then having paint horses, most of our horses do all the classes. It's a lot different than the quarter horse world show where very few horses do so many classes so well. They're so specialized that most people that do multiple classes rip multiple horses. That's something I actually love about the paints is we do all of it on one horse. So the term I use a lot with the horses, like we change their hat a lot. It's not uncommon for me to hop on a horse, warm up a few minutes, work horsemanship maneuvers, let my reins out, gallop around, change some lead, make sure that feels good, head over to trail, do a couple trail obstacles, and then go finish off a little bit of pleasure or hunt under saddle. And then hop off and do a little showmanship. Like that's not uncommon. And those horses, once they're in that space, that could only take 30 minutes. I'm not spending an hour work because that horse is trained that I work every day. It knows what to do. So a lot of what makes our horse shows tougher at paint shows is a lot of our events are short. So we do a lot of classes in a day. That horse has to know how to come out and change it out a lot. So that's what we work on. I would say probably the most is horsemanship, but going from event to event and making sure that horse is comfortable doing that and that rider can adjust their seat, go from that aggressive seat to working horsemanship and commanding to backing off and having a quiet seat to the trail, then stepping up and getting light in their seat for the Western riding. And so I think we work on that changing of the hats quite a bit. That's the term I call it, changing of the hats.
I mean, it's perfect. Yeah. I like it because it's the same horse. You're just kind of changing what they're wearing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's not like a super high-end trail horse for AQHA. Most of them only do trail. And so that horse works on that every day or, 3-4 days a week on those obstacles. Mine have to do all of it.
Do you find your horses get less burnt out on a singular event doing it that way? Yeah.
I think so because we're never so like twice a year are we hyper focused in class. The pre-world shows.
Yes. Yeah.
Or that's the only time for us where those quarter horses at those big events is if you're not perfect, someone's going to come be better than you because they may only have that horse for that class. And so we always strive to perfection, but there is a balance of, you don't want to run them too hard on the horse just for a weekend event because you don't want them getting hot for the equitation or, we have trail in 45 minutes. And so we make a lot of decisions. And I think that range for the horses makes them last longer because we're not always walking into the horsemanship saying, give me your heart. A lot of times we're saying, be cleaner than everybody else. And I don't say that in a negative fashion. I think that a lot of times we ride those horses softer so they don't go out there and think we're calling on their heart all the time. So I do think our horses last in the all around being a little less sour, but I don't know if we ever get them as perfection as they do. So it's a yin and a yang. I think that's why there's a style for it. And that's like most of my people like showing APHA because they like doing more than one thing. They like being involved in all the classes. And so that works for them.
Yeah.
And it's also what I really enjoy.
How do you peak your horses and your riders to the World Show?
Honestly, we really don't peak them until the World Show ever. Because we may take at a big horse show, we might say, okay, we're going to hyper focus on this class and this class. And we're going to be really good at those ones or try to be. I think the World Show is the only time that we call on them as hard as we can. And so at that point, it just becomes, we'll pattern them and pattern them and pattern them to get them to that point for a World Show, where at a weekend show, we generally, like my horses, we don't set patterns. My customers, once they're, out of a learning stage, we generally don't set a pattern ever. My customers, we don't. We talk about the patterns. We'll go out and ride the sequence of the pattern. Like if it's a walk to lope to walk to run, we'll work that sequence, but we'll work it everywhere else except on the line we're actually going to perform. That's kind of how we mix it up.
So yesterday I watched you coaching one of the ladies in the barn, and you were talking about volume up and volume down. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, that's one of my, I call my Jamesisms, and, of trying to make things relatable to everybody. When we're calling on our horses, we get amped up. And some riders ride more amped up and some riders don't. So it kind of started in my mind that I would tell a rider, like, I could see them getting nervous or anxious. And I would say to them, like, your volume's really high. You're screaming at your horse currently. I need you to talk to your horse. You've got to turn your volume down. So that's where it began. And then as I could see people that resonate with, and they understood what I meant, I have to watch them like, God, if they need to start laughing. Oh my God, why am I so nervous? And so that was like a turning point. And I realized that related to people. So then I was able to kind of add that into riding. So we would use it instead of like that point kind of had a slight negative, like, you're doing this, I need you to do that. I found a way to relate it to anything we're doing with the horses, of remembering, like, when we want to call on them, we have to get them excited, get them up to it. But then in the same breath, you can't stay that excited when you want them to go from a gallop to a slow. You're wanting them to slow down, so you need to make sure you slow down. So instead of, all the people here, sit down, heels, elbows. Okay, that becomes like at some point, and you take a million lessons, that gets a little tuned out, right?
It does, yeah.
And so I found, like, telling someone to volume down would soften their body, find that feel, instead of saying, sit back. So it, like, just changing the verbiage made them hear it different. And so that's a lot of what my coaching style is. I try to take things they've maybe heard a million times. And how can I say it a different way to now it registers?
Yeah, and I saw you do that quite a few times over the weekend with different riders. Is like, if there was an issue with that you were trying to get through, you'd say to the trainer, okay, how do you normally tell them this? And then you'd actually listen. And then I can see you think, like, I can see the gears turning, and you're like, how can I explain this in a way that the rider is going to understand what I need them to do with their horse? And I just, like I said earlier, I was very impressed with how you coach and how you explain things in different ways, and how you think outside the box, and how you keep explaining it in different ways until the rider understands
something that makes sense.
Yeah, and until they can actually do it. And you didn't get frustrated when somebody wasn't quite understanding it the first time or the second time or the third time. You just be like, okay, I need to be better. I need to explain this to them better.
I think that comes from my passion of coaching non-pro. I love the show in the open. I love to win. Who doesn't? It's not my main focus. I like to make sure those riders win. And a lot of that is, like, they kind of have to become mini horse trainers because our horses are smart.
You said professional non-pros, professional amateurs earlier, and I really liked that verbiage that you used.
Yeah, I mean, I thought sometimes in that verbiage can get like a negative connotation. I look at it from, like, when I say professional, and that probably shouldn't be a good word to use for that, but what I mean by it is, like, those people that have really dedicated the time, educate themselves with probably multiple horse trainers, and watched and learned and got, so, like, in a way it's professional because they put a lot of tools in their box that they know how to, like, work through. And that's kind of what my mind to build is, like, a professional amateur, meaning I want to fill their toolbox full. So when they're out there competing, they don't just go, oh no, my horse is being bad. They go, is my volume down? Did I guide my hand? Is my rein? They're going through their thing.
You're grounding them.
Yes. And so they're going through their thing instead of going, oh shit. They're going, okay, James prepared with this. He told me if this happens, this is what I need to do. And then of course, we always hope it works.
Yep.
But we're adding up tools that they can, if A doesn't work and B doesn't work, they're going to get to C, and make that better. So help professionalize them to know what they want to do and how to fix.
You want your riders to think on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want them to take what you say to them and kind of make their own version of it and get proficient.
I think that's where like my concept changing the way I say things until it lands. And so make sure they get what I mean out of it. And I think that came from when we talked about like my communication with my customers. I still to this day, well, I'm like, why are you doing it like that? Well, I kind of think, okay, we need to explain that. How did we go from here to here? Like, how did we land there? And then they'll tell me, oh, I didn't like this or I didn't like that. I say, okay, but that's not the problem. This is the problem. Like, oh, then they'll step back, find that. And so just straight basic communication, I think can solve most of our problems, or at least get us all on the same page to do it right.
I totally agree. Like if I am trying to coach a client through a movement that they're not understanding, like I try to understand what they're feeling and why they're feeling it that way. I think that when you understand something's why, whether it's working out or riding horses, as the coach, it helps you. If you know what they're feeling and their perspective of it, then it helps. So that way you as the coach can figure out to say the right thing to them.
Earlier you asked me like what's something I took away from watching another professional. I remember there's something that I remember them doing that I carried on. Yeah. And it was an extremely talented non-pro turned horse trainer, very successful business. And I remember they would ride around when they would have a rider when they were newly into coaching, and they would ride around and the rider wasn't getting it to what they wanted. Yeah. They got on and rode around and showed like, okay, so when I'm doing this, this is what I feel. This is what I'm thinking. And I've used that a lot. Like if I get a rider that I'm explaining to and like, I'm not finding the solution. I'm not landing to where I feel like when I look at them, they're looking back at me like, yes, I understood that and I can do it now. And a lot of times they'll say, here, hop off. Let me show you. I'll show them what I want them to do, which of course, this horses are breath and always do it perfectly when we do that.
Of course.
And then I say, okay, when I'm doing that, like when my spur's pushing, I feel like his mid-rib is moving here. Or I feel like this, or and I do that. See when I'm pulling here because his head's going that way. And I show them, and they'll think, now I want you to do the exact same thing. And then we'll recreate it. And that was something I watched someone do that I think took it to another level of, we can say it till we're blue in the face, but sometimes it also goes back to a visual and they need to see it.
Yes.
Just to be perfect. And I hate that when it doesn't do it to me. That horse doesn't do that when I do it. Well, then it doesn't matter. To me, and that's where the coaching side for me comes out with, it doesn't matter if it's perfect for me. Yeah. For me. Yeah. I mean, if I can't make that horse do it as close to what it can do for me, for them, for me, for my customers, I'm not doing a good enough job. Because my goal is to make them be able to see those horses do as close to exactly what I get them to do, if not better. I've had several horsemanship horses, equitation horses that when I prepare them, you look and be like, that horse looks like a $2 nag. Like, why are you riding that way? And I learned through the process that for that rider to get on and do what I want it to do, I ride it that way and do it that way. But if I ride it this way, then it does that for them. And that was probably a big learning curve for me too, especially when patterns have evolved the way they have. Yes, some horses were fun to that horse training on and making it do it the way that they want the rider to, but some horses then learn like, they're not going to make me. That's not going to work to them, or they don't push as hard, or they don't, they're not as smooth with their hand or whatever. So that's one of the things I try to think outside the box. Like, what is my rider going to do up there? Yes, I want them to do it perfect. I want them to do exactly how I tell them. Sometimes that rider has a loose heel and they're going to tap that foot. I can yell at them, don't do that, don't do that, don't do it. They're trying not to. That's not their goal. Right. So at some point I've got to like let that go, get that horse a little duller tap foot, because that's what she's going to do, so we can move on. Instead of spending a lot of time in that space going, why is your foot not better? Why is your foot? Yeah. They're trying. They're trying. Yeah. They're not coming out and saying, man, I really hope I can wiggle that spur and make my horse mad and get my horse turn to yell at me and act like I don't know what I'm doing. That's never anybody's goal. No. So I think that maybe comes from myself being lucky enough to be a competitive non-pro myself. I remember those things, and like, I remember what I wanted to hear. Yeah. And so I try to always go back to that. Like, when I'm riding, I don't want to hear, you're good, you're good. I want to hear, that was good, but. Yeah. Constructive criticism. Yeah. And I think some, like a horse show, a lot of people outside looking at him, they're like, I'm always picking, I'm always nagging. And they probably are a little bit right. But my people know me, and my people know that my nagging is my type A personality, that I feel like it's almost like a tick. if I don't say it to you and it goes wrong, that's my fault. And that's the way I carry on my shoulders. And that's me.
Yeah.
Nobody does that to me. No
Yeah.
customer makes me feel that way.
Yeah.
That's me. That's something that is a pro and a con.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I joke with like, Maggie Griffin and Elizabeth Collins and Tammy G's, and they wrote me for years and years and years now. And they're all very successful challenge portions of equitation, trail, western. And people on the outside will often make jokes, and they will also make them to me, that I can be walking down the tunnel and recite the 4 paragraphs that I want them to remember. And in the last couple of years, I've made jokes. I'll come out like, so as you're running, what do you remember that I said? I just completely tuned you out. I knew what you were saying. I could hear you, and I've heard it before, so I know you're right. But I have to say it. Like, it's like a tick. I can't not say it, because then if it goes out and does it not properly, I will feel guilt from it.
Yeah.
That I did not prep people. What could go wrong?
Yeah, you care, which is something that I really appreciate from talking to you and then also watching you over the weekend. Is so you were coaching lessons mostly, and sometimes the lessons would overlap. You did a really good job of paying attention to both and still making time for both, instead of saying, what hell, like, you're kind of overlapped, I'm going to focus on this person now. And that showed me that you really care. And even if you're just here for a weekend at my bar, you're going to do your best to make everybody walk away.
For sure. I want everyone who's decided to take the time to be here to ride with me. I want to give them everything I can.
Yeah. And
I want everybody to walk away with something new, or hear something new, or evolve in something that maybe their trainer's been telling them. A lot of times when I do clinic, my first thing I like to do with them is I talk to the trainer, like, what are, in a roundabout way, why am I here?
Yeah.
What are you wanting from me for this rider? And then I take that, and then I usually would talk to my rider, like, with Tammy, I would say, Tammy wanted me to work on this, this, and this with you. So we're going to do that. What also is a concern of yours? Most of the time, they're aligning.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, they'll have another something they want to talk about or work on. And then we'll go through that process and kind of try to get whatever our concern was accomplished. Or a lot of times, they'll just take a complete turn, and I'll find something else that, like, I feel like is a way bigger issue or something that I feel like, wow, if I can teach you this, but has nothing to do with those things, I really think all those things will resonate. So a lot of times we'll kind of go around about, and then we land like, now see, you wanted to work on this, this, and this, but now that we did this, see how none of those are a problem now. And that is where I try to just be creative and come up with something, especially like, this particular clinic, we worked in hour increments. So I have, 15, 20 minutes to kind of get a feel for everything and watch them and gain their trust to want to hear me. And then another 45 to try to put it all together for them.
That format worked out really well. Like, I watched you all day yesterday, watched like most of the lessons, and I could see a difference towards the end where like you kept explaining it in a different way until they understood it. And something that I really appreciated that I don't see a lot of horse trainers do is you would actually show them with your body what you needed them to do, whether it was they were doing showmanship or whether they were on the ground. So I noticed, I watched you do showmanship with somebody, and you were trying to explain something, you were trying to get them to back. And the rider or the exhibitor was just not quite understanding, not finding the feel. And so you showed them, you were like, you're doing this, I need you to do this. And I think that, like, I watched you try to explain it a couple different ways, and you were like, she's not hearing what I need her to hear. So I'm going to show her. And you said, I need your hand here, and I need your hand not to go here. You were very specific on what you wanted. And then she went and figured it out. Yeah. But I also saw you do it on, and this is the part that
I'm very notorious for doing it in trail. I do trail on foot a little bit.
Yes.
And the one I most made fun of publicly, that's all my very sweet trainer peers.
Oh, yes.
Is when I get Western riding lessons.
Yeah.
And I get very winded running it on foot.
I bet. Yeah. So that's the point that I was going to make, is I saw you give instruction to somebody who was on the horse, and you didn't have them get off. You got in front of them and you showed with your hand or with your leg, you're like, I need you to do this. Like, I need your body here. I need the horse's body here. And if they still weren't getting in, I saw you do this with my trainer, you would set up like
my traps.
Your trap. That's what you call them. Your traps. Yes. So you had it. So set the scene for us and why you.
We're doing a trail lesson. And I kind of just made this up. I'm sure other people do it, but for me, I've never seen it for me. But I would set up an obstacle we're going to work on. So whenever I kind of felt was going to be a good single obstacle for us to get a lot done on for the big wheel. And she has a smaller strided horse, which I've had a lot of smaller strided trail horses, actually very much love them. I really enjoy them, but they're trickier. To get that big open step without getting fast, without getting wild on a little horse is hard. So I developed this when I was working with a lot of non-pros. I mean, obviously you're learning how to do a wheel. You're learning how to do things as an over. You need to do it over and over and over, because trails only learn by repetition, like most things, but trail especially. And obviously we want the rider to ride perfectly. Never let that horse drop her shoulder. Never let, that's what we want to have happen. However, when we're now training them to count 1, 2, 3, don't let it speed up. Stay in the bridle. Keep your feet on. Look ahead. Turn your hip. I mean, that poor rider, especially if they've never been coached like that, they're so overwhelmed.
It's a lot.
So I started getting to where I would set up lanes, like I block the inside, block the outside on that horse to create confidence in my
Explain that
riding.
more, because I know what you're talking about. I was there with you, but explain what you meant by blocking it.
So I'll take shorter poles and put them in gaps to make the line that I want that rider or that horse to go on, so that there's like very minimal margin for error. And I think that a lot of things you have to feel what right is to know what right is. And I think that if I can create the scenarios, they can get around that wheel. And usually what I do is I have someone go around the wheel per se, and I find where their holes are. And then I kind of just stand back for a minute and I build with either short poles or blocks or whatever. And I trap where I see the riders dropping their eye, the horse dropping their shoulder, and I create my trap. Till they get to where I want it. Then I'll have them walk. We talk about it and talk about why that trap is there and where you're not looking. Then we go through it again. And usually by that time, we've made some progress. And as I watch the horse and I watch the rider start applying, like I'll start pulling my trap bits in, like one by one away until then I have it completely bare and they're riding the obstacle all on their own. And I think it's a good tool because one, when you're up there and you're constantly telling them, look here, look here, look here. They're thinking about so many things all the time. It's hard to remember all that. But if I put them in a lane, they have to find that line. So then all of a sudden that stripe they might have been looking for is right there in front of them. Because there's no question for error. Did you mean the outside right or did you mean the inside? That's a fair question if you're learning or just overwhelmed. And so I find the traps are just a way to keep my horses really, really sharp. So as my rider may not be using an inside leg, that pole is there to help them remind, don't have your shoulder, don't have your shoulder. I know your rider's not helping you right now, but she will in a minute or he will in a minute. And so that's kind of how I started that process. And I think it does work really, really well for anybody. I will set them for myself. If I am struggling on a wheel and a horse, I will go out, set my trap for myself, because then also it trains that horse to see that pole, know to stay up, and then they're a little bit more accepting of that leg. And, through the process, it just kind of comes together. But also if you have to do it over and over and over again for riders, because oftentimes I feel like in trail it happens often, you're going to hit a wall someday that you're going to do trail till you're blue in the face, and you never want to get, my goals with any lessons, don't get that point that you walk away so frustrated you got nothing. There's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, but if we can try to make them all educational, then everybody walked away still wanting to do the sport, still wants to come back and do it again.
Something that I appreciated about your coaching style is you made it serious but fun at the same time. And you tried to make sure that everybody was enjoying themselves and in an excited state to learn. Yes.
I just think you have to remember, this is supposed to be.
This is a hobby. We do
This
it
is
for
supposed to
fun.
be, and everyone that's here could be at the tennis court, could be on
They could be on
vacation,
the they could be on the beach.
and they're choosing to take that money and spend it here. And I try to always keep that into perspective. Like, yes, you're gonna have hard days. This is not an easy sport.
No.
It's not one, if not easy in general for the rider, but then like in the other sport, you're also at the end of a live animal. So it's not easy. And truthfully, it's not for everyone. But I try to always keep everything as positive as possible, or at least if it is a downtime, have a positive outlook, or like go all the way back to communication, just a realistic outlook. Like, this is gonna be tough for all. You're not gonna enjoy this. Okay. But if we can get over this hump or this problem or this, it will get fun and you will enjoy it. That's when I'll do that. You gotta trust the process. And a lot of times, like I'll say, when Libby came, she showed POAs. She came to me, wanted to start showing horses. And her mom said, I'll get her a horse, that you gotta finish up her dreams for the POA. And if you'll do that, we will buy paint and then we'll be done with the ponies. And, there was a lot of hard days in that. We really stepped up our game huge. Looking back, I love that Lori made us do it on the pony. Yes, we got the show horse and we were going that route and evolving, but it was a really good parenting moment. And at the time I'm not much older than me. And not that she'll tell me I'm old, but I'm just simple that that was a good learning experiment for me too. Like that I had to find a way to check that box positively because that was her mom's dream to get that done. But it was also a life lesson for her. Like, we're not going to just be done with it because you're done. We're going to finish what we started. When we've done what we're doing, we can move on. And I think those kind of things are super important.
As much as we hate the things that our parents try to teach us when we're young, oh my God.
Yeah.
Then you grow up and you're like, oh, thank God.
Oh, yeah.
Parents didn't just let me get that nice horse or that nice,
Absolutely.
whatever it is, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then for me, I've had a lot of, I started so young. So when Lexi Estrada was a very successful kid with me and then on into an amateur now, and we're still very, very close. I mean, I'm only, got to do a little math here. I'm only 4 or 5 years older than her.
Yeah.
So which isn't anything like anything now, but remember when she was in the youth, she came to me because she watched when she was, I believe it was her last section, I don't remember math here. It was last September, first 14 year. She watched me win the equitation. She watched me win the Western riding. She wanted to be me.
Yeah.
And so that's how that kid came along, and then that's how our bond began, and that's how we started building things and, keeping that going through the years. And so it's wild to think how that evolved.
Yeah. Are you ready to take your riding to the next level? Better performance starts with a mindset shift. How you think, train, and show up each day. Positive affirmations like small steps toward big goals, progress over perfection, and consistency builds confidence serve as powerful reminders to stay focused and committed. Check out our Elevate Your Ride affirmation merch, linked in the show notes, and add intention to your everyday routine. What advice do you have for somebody who's listening to this right now?
Keep trying. Keep trying. Listen to your trainer, listen to your coach, and keep communication. Keep communication with them about what you want, what your goals are, what you want to do. Communication. Talk to your trainer, talk to your coach. Make sure that's a good relationship.
Yeah, because if you're not on the same page, how are you going to get where you want to go? How are you going to get anywhere?
Remember, I think a big takeaway to remember about your horse trainers, I feel like I can say 99% of us are trying our best. And if you can let us know something isn't the way you want it or how, probably can evolve with you.
Yeah.
Because remember, I will say this to my trainer peers when they're having trouble with a client, or I've had it said to me, Sean said to me about, remember, they're trying their best.
Yeah.
And that'll be a yes. Okay. So we got to step back and make sure we can find it.
Like you said earlier, when the trainer is trying to say, hey, quit putting your inside leg on, and you're like, well, the amateur didn't wake up that day and say, how can I get my trainer to yell at me over? And how can I piss my trainer off the stick? Your trainer most likely doesn't wake up saying, how can I make my clients hate this sport?
Right.
Yeah.
Our goal is we want to keep you loving and keep you doing and keep you wanting to be here with us and keep hunting a new goal, or, try to achieve something that you haven't, or go back for that repeat, any of those goals.
Yeah. Tell us about a goal that you set for yourself in the past and how hard you had to work for it.
I think one of the goals I set out wanting to do kind of came along with how I even got into this was when Erica wanted to be #1 amateur. That was something that when I moved into paint and learned about that process and what that meant, I thought that was so cool. I thought that award, all of us want to win the all around, want to be high point, but that was another degree of it. And what's different about APHA's top 20 as opposed to a year-end all around for AQHA.
Yeah.
AQHA's is a point race. So the person who wins the most points is the winner.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
What I think is neat about APHA's version is we have what's called the top 20.
Okay.
The top 20 means if you're my judge that day, all of my APHA points I earned with you are my scores. So through the year, they keep your 20 highest scores. I think it's really neat. It's extremely strategic. And so it adds a different element than just who can afford to go to the most horse shows or who is at every major event where the points are so big, but who can be strategic and go all over and get the most points per judge. And so I just always thought that was really neat. It was a loose goal I set out from my last youth year. And I think I ended up third that year. I also at that time, especially where APHA was in 2004, some of those kids were roping and reining and jumping. So the fact that I ended up as high as I did, and I only did showmanship, horsemanship, not like only showmanship, horsemanship, equitation, under saddle, pleasure, trail, western riding.
Only.
And my horse wouldn't halter. So like at the time I had no performance halter, he was a wonderful horse, but terribly managed. So like I wasn't getting any bonus out of there.
Yeah.
So then when we did it with Erica, that was really special to me. That was my first year on my own. She had a goal set out. She was, I mean, just like me, hard-headed, and we weren't taking no for an answer. And we went all over and won #1 amateur. Then, so that was kind of what kicked off that I run for #1 most years of my career with somebody. So we've been #1 amateur quite a few times. We've been #1 13 under quite a few times. #1 court 18 quite a few times. Novice amateur. I think the only #1 that I haven't won yet is I've not won the Masters #1. We've been second a couple different times, but that's the only one that I still like on my, haven't won that yet. But most people probably would have talked about like their goals for themselves. But for me, that is a goal for myself. And there's been funny conversations through the years because most people know how important that award was and is to me. And so it's been funny how so many people that have been in the program and almost feel like they owe it to me to go for that. And I think that's really, really cool that they know that's something that's important to me. And then because that becomes important to them. And that's really special to me. That's something that I set out that I really liked that award. I thought that was cool. I love the honor, and that's what I love about Paint Horse. And I think it's fun that my customers see that excitement in it for me. And so many of them have wanted to do it and accomplished it. So that's really, and there's been a few years that we've been able to be like #1 and #2. And so that was even more special. I took 2 girls down the road and they both were hunting the same dream. And honestly enough, they both worked their butts off. They both tried their hardest and they were so happy to where they landed. You know, with the one that ends up #1, the other girl's #2. The next year, the girl's #2 ends up #1. So it's so neat that they kept such a cool barn camaraderie through it as well, because obviously chasing an award inside the same barn, I mean, it's already hard to chase an award against somebody else outside of your barn. But yet to do it, then know that every horse show you're going to, you're going against your hardest competition every single time.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so fun. They were like, well, may the best woman win. Here we go.
Here we go.
And so the top 20 lost a little bit of its push. And I'm hoping that with some of the changes to the APHA they're talking about, I hope that it's going to have a little bit more weight to it in the future, because it's something super important to me. And I'll do everything I can to make that award as special as it once was, because I think it can.
Okay, so then opposite question. What's the goal that you set out that you didn't achieve, and what did you learn from it, or how did it make you better in the long run?
Most recent, obviously, like I said, I don't do a lot of 2 and 3-year-olds. And so in the last, I not say I don't have any, but I'm usually buying, end of the year 2-year-olds or beginning of the year 3-year-olds to then go on and create all-in horses. We've done a lot.
Yeah.
Obviously 3-year-old trails become a really, really big thing.
Yeah.
And I love that. I also love the trail, and that's really fun. And I created a lot. And for like 4 years, I made a really nice 3-year-old trail horse. And I was lucky enough that other people also thought it was nice and bought it. So I never got to actually go to that final stage and show it at the World Show, go to the NSA World and do it. So this last year I had 2 really special ones, and one of them was a little bit more standout special. And he sold and went on to have an amazing career. So that was super fun. And then my other one, very nice horse. It's a customer's horse in the bar. I won the 3-year-old on him at the Paint World. But for me, I was super disappointed in myself, not my horse. I was super disappointed in myself that when I went to the NSBA World, that was my first time to get to show a 3-year-old there. I've shown the trail there. I've done well from the Western riding there. Had some success with the pleasure there. But I obviously really wanted to do the 3-year-old trail because to myself, I wanted to prove that all those 3-year-olds I trained that got sold for high dollar to really awesome programs going and win a whole bunch of cool things, that I could be the one to do it on it. And I was very disappointed in myself that I did well, but did not check the box I wanted to check. The horse did well. He earned some money. He won the paint world.
Okay.
And I had some faux pas on myself
Mhm.
there. So that was probably my most disappointing, because I was not disappointed in my horse, not in my team that got me there. I was bummed at myself that I let myself down. I let the pressure get to me a little bit more than I wanted it to. And I'm not one to go to a horse show and get nervous. That's not me. And I don't
You
even know
don't
if,
seem like the type to get.
no, and I don't
Yeah,
think
no.
I was nervous. I just, in those moments, like my non-pros,
Yeah.
I try to give them all the tools to make the best decisions. I thought I had all the tools to make the best decisions, and I made okay decisions.
Mhm.
And I was very disappointed in myself. That's the most recent one I can kind of think about. I was bummed with myself, but it also did two things. That a loss inspires me. It doesn't take me down.
Yeah.
And so I think that that horse, from my disappointment in myself, is going to turn out to be one of my best junior trail horses I've had in a while. And so that I turned kind of a negative there of me letting myself down into a positive that now I'm super excited about him and
Mhm.
super looking forward to it, because now I feel like I owe it to him that I kind of let him down
Mhm.
and made him at that event look average.
Mhm.
And I did that to him.
Mhm.
And so now I can go back and take this next year and give that back to him and prove it to myself that I just messed up. I'm human.
Mhm.
Wasn't my best.
So are you doing anything different? Like, are you going to prepare yourself differently?
So it was a learning curve. I've never, I've obviously had horses from other people. I have to learn their ways and adapt the horse to me. Very different when it's a 3-year-old. A horse is just learning in its early stages what we're doing.
Mhm.
And I think that was a new challenge for me.
Mhm.
That was to take a horse at a very young stage that hasn't had years of repetition by either me
Mhm.
or someone else that I'm stepping on. This was a horse that was very new to, and that was a
Yeah.
new process for me, because I was always able to sell those 3-year-olds so early. I never had to get to that finished process. I
Yeah.
got them doing the polls, I got them doing the things, I did
Yeah.
all that, and then that next trainer took it and did it. Well, this time I was that next trainer.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been in that position before. So I think then realized I hadn't been in that position before, I very much second guessed myself along the way, especially when I'd
Yeah.
watched a horse already show and be competitive, which that doesn't bother me. I've bought a lot of very famous horses with huge resume that I'll just go show, and either I'm going to do really well and make that trainer and that horse proud, or I'm going to mess up and learn from it and get better. I don't ever put that pressure on, oh, this horse has learned so much, I better not mess it up. I mean, I might. I'm only human. Again, like I said, I'm going to try my best not to, but if I mess up, I'm going to learn from it and get better. And so that's kind of think the way I looked at it. I just going to go out there and try again
Mhm.
and give myself a little bit of grace mentally.
I love that. I love that you're like, well, it is what it is. I didn't do my best.
Yeah, I'm definitely bummed in the moment, but I can't change it.
Yeah.
I'm just human.
I love that that's the way that you looked out of it instead of getting internally saying, I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be good
Oh,
enough.
I'm not going to say that I didn't in the moment. I'm not going to lie to you right here. Like
Okay.
I'm a human as well. I mean, I definitely did for a moment, and then I step back and realize, okay, you're being ridiculous right now.
Yeah.
It's just a horse, and you're human.
Mhm.
People have bad days,
Just riding a horse in a
and
circle in
you
dirt.
can either let it get you.
Yeah.
And I did for a day or two for sure. But then I can either stay there or I can do better.
Mhm.
And I'm just chose to do better.
Yeah. I think that Lauren, who I usually co-host with, I think that
Mm.
she said to somebody, I can't remember which interview it was, but you need to give yourself time to grieve the loss of the goal that you set out for yourself. And if you don't let yourself grieve, then you're just elongating that process of getting better. But in the opposite, if you grieve too much and you never get out of that grieving process, then you never learn from it.
Yeah. And I've been lucky enough that most goals I've set out for, I've been able to achieve. I've rarely fallen real short. So that was a very humbling experience for me,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm used to being able to pull through, pull it off,
Mm-hmm.
kind of sometimes shocked myself.
Yeah.
And that was a time I did not. And that was a big, like, whoa, okay.
Time to go back to the
Yeah,
or try
yeah.
again.
And
Yeah.
and like I said, I don't think it was my head was too big. I don't think it was I think I just didn't have a good show.
Yeah.
I just didn't.
And that happens to everybody.
And I had to remind, I mean, I think Sean said it to me. He's like, you would, like, you'd be mad, be upset. That's the thing. He's like, but you would literally, in a coaching positive way, you would yell at your kids for being like this. If
Yep.
Maggie came back to the pen saying that to you, you would let her have it. You've won so much. You've done so much. You've done this. You've done that. Like, this was just a bad day.
Yep.
Why are you not this one time, Jade, 30 years of success?
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I hate that you're so right
So
now.
right. Yeah.
That is exactly what I would say. And I would tell her, suck it up, buttercup. Let's go have a glass of wine. Let's make a plan. Let's do better tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had to take my own words. And I have had a few of those instances, where my little quick one-liners that get me with my people, they'll give me back to me, and I give it, gotta give touche to it,
Oh yeah, my trainer loves it when we do that back to her. We're like, "Wow, you always say this to us, we're gonna throw it right back at you."
Mhm.
Yeah. How important is having a supportive partner in your overall
Oh,
success?
beyond.
Yeah.
Beyond. I literally could horse train without him and do the coaching, absolutely. But Sean is like my right hand.
Mm.
He loved this. He loves being a part of it.
Mhm.
He does so much for myself and my program.
Yeah.
I mean, he does most of my social media. He enters most of the horse shows for us. I mean, he does. I had the list on and on. He speaks with my ad designers. Like, I give them my vision. They work. He does our photography.
Yeah.
And then they'll send me the proofs, and I give my, what I like, what I don't like kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he handles so much for us. So like, having his support through it all is, I don't know if I could do it without, I think that's a lot of what, as I've aged and having him by my side and those things, like, it makes everything very level. And he also is a normal person that has a normal job. And so it makes me remember that I can be normal. I can be done early. I can go have a life outside of this as well. It's very easy if you're, either not with somebody at all or with somebody in the horse world, to have it completely consume your life. And if you're happy with that, that's wonderful. I learned early on that's not for me.
Mhm.
I had an interview recently, and someone, like a TikTok thing, and someone said, "What's the least cowboy thing about you?"
Yes.
And my
Yep.
answer was everything.
Mhm.
I'm not a cowboy in any sense of the word. I don't pretend to be. I'm a horse trainer and coach.
Mhm.
And there's a big difference. And I'm always very adamant about that I'm not a cowboy.
Mhm.
I am a horse trainer and coach. And there's a difference. That's not my lifestyle.
Mhm. Mhm. Again, this is something that we talked about on a previous episode, that if horses completely disappeared from your life tomorrow, you'd want to be able to stand up
Yeah.
without them on your own 2 feet. It can be a big part of your life, but if it consumes your life,
Yeah.
it becomes your entire life. If for whatever reason they go away and you can't ever go to the barn again, you can't ever ride again, you don't want that to be your entire identity. Yeah.
And that's very important. It's very hard for horse trainers. Most horse trainers, this was, we were you.
Yeah.
This was our sport. This was our hobby.
Yep.
We sacrificed everything to do this. And
Yep.
at some point we go, oh, it's what we're going to do full time. And so it's a weird balance. I know some horse trainers do have hobbies and like have it. I don't. I joke that my hobby is traveling because I don't,
Yes.
I'm not athletic. I'm not like, I don't do those things. Like, so like my hobby is traveling because I don't do anything else.
You don't have a thing?
All I ever did growing up was all I did was ride horses. I rode horses every single day. I
Yeah.
drove to my horse trainers. We had did my horse trainers ride. I have horses at home. I literally rode all day, every day from when I was probably about 15. Because I rode the hunter barns. My mom would drop me off, and I had one that I owned and that I leased, and I rode for my trainer. So I would jump 6 to 10 a day.
That's a lot.
That's what was normal.
Wow.
So that's all I've ever done. I've only ridden horses all day. I've never had a job. I went from being a non-pro to working for my horse trainers and like being an assistant and working at that to being a horse trainer. I've never had a boss. Like, I'll joke, I'll ask the girl, but like, can't you just like tell your boss this? And they're like, you've obviously never had a boss. That's not how it works. I'm like, no, I haven't. I know you're actually right. I've never had to, outside of like show times and getting the horse riding, whatever. I've never been told you have to be here by this. You have to do that. Like, even if I make an appointment, I make the appointment on my time.
Yeah.
I've never been told you have to do that.
Uh-huh.
So it's a very different, it's a reality check. And I get it from the girls often because they all have real jobs and have real
Like
bosses.
Yeah. I joke all the time that, so me, my boss, self-employed, I'll be like, man, like my boss sucks. Like, she
Oh,
gives me a day
yeah.
off. I can never go do anything. I have to work all the time.
My
Yeah.
friends, I was talking about my circle of friends that
Yeah.
don't do horses. They're
Yeah.
like, well, can you just call in sick tomorrow?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure. Here, hold on. Hey, you're going to be sick tomorrow. I mean, like, no, because I've got it. That's what I have to do. That's the life I chose in one sense.
It's a beautiful life.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if horses disappeared
Mhm.
and you had to go get a normal job and you had to find another hobby, what would you do? What would it be? What would you do?
You're going to laugh. So as many people know me, I love New Orleans. It's
Okay.
my most favorite place to travel. I mean, I've been to some really cool places and seen some cool things, but I just love New Orleans. I love the style of life. I love just like laid back
Yeah.
and I love the music and the food.
Yeah.
I joke that if I ever had to stop riding horses, I would probably learn how to bartend because I, again, don't know how to do that.
So that you'd be
Go work in a bar in New Orleans if I can live where I love to be.
Yeah.
And find a way to pay the bills.
I
I think that's what I would do. I
do
joke about it all the time.
Yeah.
I said if I win the lottery, the first thing I would do is I would buy a home down there.
Yeah.
Just so I could have that for when I want to do it.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. That's probably as crazy as it sounds, but that's what I
What about a hobby? That's work. What about a
That would-
hobby?
probably drinking would be my hobby. I don't know. Living leisure life would be my. I don't know. I'm a legit not very good at anything. Like, I mean,
Tennis, knitting.
I mean, so Sean played tennis in college, and we had a group of friends that all because they all play tennis together. I'm terrible. I sometimes to make contact. I mean, I try. I'm terrible at that. I can kind of bowl, I guess. That's really a hobby. I mean, like anything like that. Like I'm just kind of always
Whatever.
I would say I'm really only good at riding horses. I guess that's all I've ever done.
Well, done the right thing.
Yeah.
Then. Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Elevate Your Ride podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend, follow us on social media, or leave a positive review. Please note, the views, ideas, and education shared on this podcast are intended for general education, and you should always consult with your team before making any big changes.